Okay, so you know how in Fred Zinnemann's film High Noon, there's a kind of an issue there with, you know how it's a great film and how then toward the end it, Will Kane seems to imply, or I guess rather the film seems to imply that Grace Kelly's character, his Will Kane's fiance, it's like she was also in the wrong for not wanting to defend him because she's a Quaker. She's a conscientious objector to violence, and that's why she didn't want anything to do with trying to protect Will Kane or anything like that. And plus, it's not like she's a gunslinger or anything. And so I always was kind of disappointed that the film had to resort to her trying to betray her principles in order to. I mean, I don't know if that's nihilistic or whether that's a kind of a go at the Quakers. See, recently also I watched this because I brought it up in the Syndicate Sadists video. I decided, me and my flatmate decided to sit down and watch Rambo's 2 to 4 last night. Time flew by a lot quicker than it ought to have, perhaps. And in that fourth one, which is an absurdly violent film, but there's a Christian missionary character who eventually sees the potential virtues of smashing someone's head in with a rock. I'm not even kidding. I'm just like, whoa, what's the message of this film? What the feck? I mean, like, I get it. Like, I know that, like, realistically you might be in a situation where that's a thing, but, like, God forbid, right? You just come across as a bit of a nihilist wank. I don't know. Like, remember that 90s comic book Preacher? As a show now. I've never watched the show. Most of these shows are crap. But what does this have to do with Rome Armed to the Teeth? That's a pretty cool title, isn't it? Yeah, you will also know this movie is The Tough Ones, by the way, in case you're thinking, I don't remember this movie being called Rome Armed to the Teeth. If you don't, it's because it was called The Tough Ones. Instead, Thomas Milan plays a hunchback character who appears to rock up in a later film. I don't know if that film's meant to be a prequel, though, because, well, let's not go there. So why was I talking about High Noon before? Well, I'm glad you asked. The protagonist's girlfriend, oh yeah, this is the same actor who we saw in many of these Pilotchiteschi, you probably recognize that. He's determined to convince his girlfriend that, you being a sociologist, you being lenient on the criminals, these criminals are taking advantage of the law now rather than being scared of the law, It's like there's more checks and balances for the police officers than there are for the actual criminals committing the crimes. It's a bit like the whole Dirty Harry thing. He thinks the bureaucracy's going too far, getting in the way of getting the job done. And so it's basically about this woman being proven wrong, and that there does need to be serious force at times committed against criminals. It's interesting. Here's the thing. What's kind of ugly about these films potentially is they'll have the most sick and vile acts committed by such criminals, so that when the authorities track them down and kill them in a vaguely vigilante-esque fashion, you don't care as much. You might even feel a bit sated that they've done so. Kind of dangerous, slippery slope to a kind of real-world barbarism being justified, I think. This film's portrayal of, and say to some degree, the Dirty Harry's series of its first 3 entries, portrayal of a police force, or rather a bureaucracy kind of attempting to corral, if you will, the police force, is ideologically motivated by a certain sadism, a certain tee-hee-hee, a certain get back at the system sort of mentality, political, whatever. I don't know if that reflects the real world as much as it thinks, for better or for worse. I think, like the police officers, most bureaucrats just want to do what they're told and get their job done, which, yeah, can lead to issues, inevitably. Fun film. One of the most overtly, potentially, fascistic of these particular Pilotchiteschi, certainly of those directed by Lenzi. Although, as a piece of action bravura, it's quite fun overall.